So we are 4 people who came from Dijon in France to introduce you about our project. It's the place where we come from, that's the place where we live. I live in this place for 2 years now with her. And I am part of the project from the beginning, which means 2010. And yeah.
I've been there since the beginning of last year, and I'm part of the main gardening collective in the Lentillères.
For me, I was part also from the beginning in 2010, putting the place, and since 4 years now, I joined the place to live.
Hello, innocently there since the beginning.
So first, we're going to make a first small introduction about Dijon and France to explain a bit the general context, because it's a bit useful to understand a bit more what's going on there, because I guess it's very different from what you could live in either Greece or your own places. But one big thing is that Dijon is this under the yellow circle. So as you can see, the big cities kind of around are Paris and Lyon. And it's what we could consider a medium-sized city. There are 250,000 people living in this city. And so as part of this medium-sized city, it's really in this general process in France, maybe in other countries, I don't know, of competitivity. You have to be a competitive city. You have to attract people. You have to attract, like as a mayor, you have to attract the investment. And so in Dijon too, they are really into this dynamic. And it means a lot. You have to sell a good image of your city. And they are really into this. Dijon is a part of Burgundy. So this is a small bit of Burgundy called the Côte d'Or, Golden Coast. And you have Dijon under the yellow circle there. And as you can see on the east, it's mainly big fields, some kind of plain. But what Dijon is really famous for is what you have along what we call the coast. So it's some kind of line between the circle towards south, and it's famous for wine. Yeah, Dijon had a big history with monasteries in the 11th century. Like in Christianity, it was Burgundy was quite big, but also in the 14th and 15th century, it was kind of the capital of the dukes of Burgundy. And so from this, it gets a lot of kind of richness, which can be very good if you want to sell the image of your city. And so it has like loads of very nice buildings from this time, which makes it a kind of nice city, or at least easy to make a nice image from it. And so a few years ago, they put a tramway, and it helped a lot to make a more pedestrian city, but also a more panoptical city with wide streets, with a lot of CCTV cameras to watch, like we have loads of cameras in the city. So it's not that kind of city, it's that kind of nice city for pictures and for postcards, but not super nice to live, apart from people who are into shopping. And what it says on this thing is Dijon Historical City Center, shopping in bigger. And like our mayor, he said 1 year ago, we are very proud to make Dijon as one of the bigger shopping center, like outdoor shopping center. And that's really the aim, like from this historical center with loads of kind of richness, making it a place to attract people with high economical level and to attract investors. And one symbolic project in Dijon for the next years, it's the what they call the Cité du Vin et de la Gastronomie, so City for Wine and Gastronomy. So they also want to make it a very good place for tourists, but obviously not for, for like tourists who are interested in wine, interested in French culture and gastronomy, and gastronomy meaning very nice cooking thing, you know, but very fine and subtle. And that's what they're trying to do, but they basically want to make the city bigger to attract a lot of more people. One reason for it is that if they have much more people, they can have a bit more money from investors, but also from the state. They begin to be a very big metropolis, and that's why they're really like, we should have more inhabitants. And for this, they have a politics of like, we should develop. But they have this vision that rather than extending, which would mean taking the fields around, and they have this kind of vision of sustainable development, like this kind of greenwashing vision, we should rather densify the city. We should rather make the city more dense. And so the very few wasted land that are left in Dijon, the very few free spaces, they want to make loads of buildings in it and to create a lot of buildings and then to attract a lot of people, even if there is no need for it because there are loads of empty buildings already. And so the different kind of wasteland you can have in Dijon is either military wasteland, because there are much less militaries in the city. It could also be industrial wastelands, but it's also actually some farm wastelands, like old land for farming, which are with nothing on it. So it's very precious for the city, as they want to make the city bigger with much more people. And before 2020, they would like to make 15 new projects of like housing projects. They call it eco-quartier, eco-quarter, because they know that by calling something eco, meaning kind of green, it's a good way to make it acceptable for the population. And there's nothing very special about this eco-quartier, apart from the fact that rather than going around the city, it's inside the city, and it's to make the city more dense. So there is nothing very specially green on this eco-quartier, but and one of them is called Éco-Cité Jardin des Maraîchers, which means eco-garden of the market gardeners. And we are quite, we're quite interested by this one because it's the one who threatens our own projects, actually. And so, as you can see, around the yellow circle is the historical city center, and the triangle on the southeast is the triangle which concerned their project. If we zoom in, we see there are two different triangles, actually. There is one on the southeast, which is some more industrial wasteland. It used to be some slaughterhouses where they used to kill the animals in. So, and this was during the 60s and 70s. And in the 80s, they left the place, but the place is quite, actually, like the ground is quite shitty because it was like loads of chemicals being used and like, yeah, industrial things. But up, you have some traditional land which used to be used for kind of either gardening, and actually it was part of what we would call the green belt of Dijon. So this area, which before the city began expanding, there were loads of gardens around the city, which is the situation in loads of medium cities in France, and it used to be part of it. And so for more than 50 years, it was some farms or gardens there, but it was abandoned until we came in, actually. And for and this second part, we can see it there, and it's all the place is actually squatted, apart from the blue spaces, and it's 8 hectares. So we counted and we said it's about 15 stadium. I don't know whether it helps you, but it's quite big. Like, it's very big in the city, knowing that it's inside the city. If you used to Wagenburgs in Germany, it's much bigger actually. And for the part, the industrial part. For the industrial part, actually, so I said it was industrial and then abandoned, but for the story, in 1997, some people began squatting this industrial wasteland and began organizing some gigs, and with the idea of trying to take away a space from the city and capitalism, and organizing some kind of anarcho-punk gigs, and with the idea of trying to stay in the city and trying to be a bit rooted. And in 2001, this place had an agreement with the city council, which is quite symbolic in Dijon, because actually in 2001, the city council became the left wing, Socialist Party, so it's obviously not leftish, but it's different from right, obviously. And the mayor is really into this idea of not having a frontal conflict when there is some dissensus like this, but like, for instance, trying to make an agreement with some visible anarchist people is part of their policy, which is very, very special in France, actually. It's not a lot of cities like this. And so this place called Les Tanneries, the tanneries, the slaughterhouses, was in this area. And actually, is part of this history too, and we lived in this previous place, and so it's part of the very big kind of anarcho-punk underground culture, which is actually quite big in Dijon, regarding the fact that it's quite like posh and a bit conservative city for a lot of things. Like, there are not so many workers and factories in the city. From the 60s, they really tried to avoid having factories in the city, because they really feared having too much workers and too much popular people. But despite this, from the 90s, there is some quite big, regarding the size, like loads of gigs, or like anarchist demos, and so loads of way of seeing things and doing things connected to it. And with this space of Les Tanneries, we developed a lot of vision of like DIY culture and squatting practices, but also the idea of sharing basic skills and like knowing how to build things and beginning a little garden and all these things. And also we very connected to the movement in France, which began in late 200s, like around 208, 9, 10. This movement of ZAD began, and with it there is this idea of autonomy, meaning we should reappropriate the different knowledge to like make a big garden, build a cabin, and also be much more rooted, rather than this previous movement, which was more into counter summit, for instance, and like going again, some G20 and G8 of these things, which had some loads of interest, but which was also much less rooted in a place. And so added to this anarcho-punk culture was this vision of like, we should be rooted to the city where we live. And that's from all this that the Lentillères, the Quartier des Lentillères kind of began. And for the story, we have the tannery decided to move in 2010 for different reasons, but another story begins with the Lentillères. So. It's Francis before.
Yeah. Comment tu mets ça? Non? Okay. Now I will present this quarter where we are living, so which name is Lentillères. I will show you many pictures of this place, and I will give some information about it, but I will not pass a long time to speak about the organization, because it will be the third part. Like Tasha, she will do it after. So it's more like a diapo, many slides I will with pictures, and probably I will have some troubles with my English. So okay. So we started, like Mathilde said, in 2010. We were interested in production inside the city, and we joined a movement which was beginning in Dijon with other collectives, but more like environmental collective and associations and students, and we took part as we were part in Les Tanneries, and we were interested. We had before began to make a garden and occupy a place, but suddenly there was a new proposition we could join with a big project to take a new part of the town, like this abandoned place, which now is called Lentillères. So we joined a composition of different groups in the city, and we prepared an occupation. So in 2010, we made a demo, and so we were maybe 150 people with a shitty weather in the winter, and starting from quite nothing. And we had, so we made a demo starting from the city center and going to this place, like nobody knew we were gonna do it after. And we invited people also from different cities, and this network that maybe you know, which name is Reclaim the Fields, like which are involved in the like saving fields, and so all day we started to appropriate this field. This is the first occupation. So all day we did it, and okay, and its name, we call it Potcol, like it was to make a collective garden. We wanted to make gardening, but just not just by ourselves, but also with other people, making something collective, because it's more our practical. And so during 2 years, we began to grow vegetables, to make some constructions on it. At this time, we didn't have a lot of knowledge to build, so it was our first cabin. And we start to establish during 2 years this collective garden, and starting to to organize together, to have assembly, with people who are not used to do it. I mean, we were coming from this kind of organization, but we did also with people who come from a different way of organization. So it took time to do it, and in the same time, we didn't have so much trouble. At the beginning, we were like many people who came, who say, I'm the owner of the field, you have to go, blah, blah, blah. But finally, we are just not a lot of written. But because I think it was a surprise for the town, like, towns, they know when you are squatting a building, they know there is a trial, and after they can destroy. But for a garden, like, it was a bit new for them, how to evict a garden, they didn't know. So for a time, I think they didn't know how to react. In the same time, they were not the owner at the beginning, so they could not do it. So it was, so in the same time, we have been many times in the city, like in the center, to make food, to make exposition, we were writing text and trying to get, trying to show our struggle in the city and to make mediatization. And what I forgot to say is also that we occupy this place because we knew that the town is gonna have a big project to destroy everything. And it was just starting from their project. And it's like Mathilde said before, we had this feeling that we have to be inside the struggle, so to occupy the place, and in the same time to make struggling against this project. So here you can see some. We went to the city council to perturbate it, and okay. And we also start to squat some houses in the area. And when I say the city doesn't know how to evict a garden, it's not the same for buildings. So as usual, it doesn't stay a long time. First, we renovate it, and for sure, some months later, they destroy it. So it was one time like this. Okay, doesn't work. Okay, we did with different buildings, and also we were part of this support for migrant people. In 2011, it was like explosion of the borders in Libya, and many people arriving in the city, more from northeast of Africa. And okay, what up? And we decided to open squats also in the area where we are living. So it lasted a few months or so, and it was destroyed after. Ouais, je vais le. Okay. Sometimes we had reaction, and in 2012, maybe the town they feel that we're gonna grow because we make a public call, like okay, now we're just squatting one part of this big area, but we feel that maybe it's gonna continue. At the beginning, we didn't know anything how long we're gonna stay, but after 2 years, we say, okay, maybe we are beginning to be popular or whatever. We made a call, like, okay, there is still some space if people want to come on. And the town, I think they at this moment, they understood that they had to stop something, so they reacted, and they came in the place with machines, big machines, and they just destroyed all. Like they made big walls everywhere in the area we didn't occupy at this moment. So it was a bit shitty for us because we had some friends we were just preparing a new project, a big project of gardening, and also they wanted to squat here, and they were like really at the moment they will do it, and suddenly it was this reaction from the town. So finally we changed our mind after maybe thinking like it will be the end, and maybe we took, okay, so the media came, and we decided to recover all of this stuff, so to fill all these walls with the ground, and we organize a different way to do it, like sometimes parties of digging, and sometimes just it was really hard work to do what this machine did before. And after a while, we did the same thing as the town, like we take a machine and we fill all of this. And it was the beginning of this project that I was telling before, like people wanted to do at this moment, which like a farm in your town was the banner of the demo we made at this moment. Like people were coming, so the name is Jardin des Maraîchers. People decided to make a farm, not just a garden that was before, but something bigger. And okay, I have some trouble with it. Okay. This they wanted to begin this project, so we make a big party, and I think this was the beginning of really suddenly the project in Lentillères grows. Because many people, they were a bit, this thing that the town decided to destroy, like finally it became popular for us, like to say, okay, they don't need this land, they don't have, the project is, for the moment, is not for now, and we have something to do with this earth. So many people came in this party, and also it began to be popular. And so this project of farm was also a way to open our project, like having a market every week, one time a week. Like this, all the neighbors can come, and also to have a big production of vegetables, which is a way, I think, of this feeling like we are struggling in the place, but also we have to make some production for us and also for people around. So we make it's the main goal of this project is this. So we start to have some equipments like tractors, building stuff. So this is the garden after a few months. Okay, this is the market, which works with free price. It lasts from June to December. There is no in winter. And after a while, we were connected with other projects, like some friends making bread in the countryside, some of our friends doing medicine stuff, and also we put info kiosk, and the market became bigger. So in 2012, it's at this moment is really the moment we think, okay, we're gonna last. We think we will be here for a while. So we start to build things in the way, okay, maybe we will be here for several years, and we will need some construction, some things to live together. So now we start to build. So we made a lot of chantier, like constructions. We need a place for assembly, so we build it. We did with a lot. We don't have really money so we did a lot with recycling stuff. Had to repair the roof, to destroy some dangerous walls. Also, some owners, before they left, they decided they were to destroy parts of the house, so we had to rebuild it. And we start to think, okay, now we are able to live in this place, and we start to put some caravans, like mobile houses, which are really practical for us. Transforming also trucks with a bathroom. Building, okay, all of this. I show you some constructions we did. And after a while, okay, getting bigger and not only just doing cabin, but house with this straw house with recycling stuff. Okay, and also we built some, we are in connection in this kind of ZAD movement, which comes from the 2008-9 to until now. Like we were, our occupation in 2010, there were many others since this time in France. I mean, we came in Avignon against the project of highway. We went in La ZAD in Notre-Dame-des-Landes against this airport. We have been in Genève for occupying also some fields in the suburbs. There were many things like this in France, quite similar. And we had special connection with La ZAD because some people of living with us have been there also, and we did a lot of, we have been there a lot. And sometimes we have been there also building, in 2012, we built a house in Dijon, and we bring it to La ZAD. It was a way to support the struggle there. And in 2018, like a few months ago, there was a demo in La ZAD, so we bring our struggle also in this demo. We build a structure, and just we put this picture because you can see like our projects are connected together. You see Bure, Lentillères, ZAD. Like we really want to be connected together, and when we can, we try to put our struggle outside of our city and making a movement together. Okay. I will come back to our place. Also, we had some like deco, or also the way to appropriate the street with graffiti. And when Mathilde spoke about Dijon, really it's a clean town where when we see all the graffiti here, it's really not the same in Dijon. So we try to put some marks in our place where we are living. Here we were in front of the city council, denouncing the public inquiry made to we made different ways of resistance. I mean, like it was this time was to defend a squat, which should have been evicted, and so it was. You see behind this house. We will not. Okay, we made fake news. Like in September, the town organized a big concert, 3 big concerts in the city, and we decided to make a fake, like to say that one artist, which is famous in France, he was supporting one house in Lentillères, support the Lentillères against an eviction, and it became something really polemic in the town because many people think it was a real news. I don't know. So it works. It worked really good at this moment. That people they didn't know, and finally they heard about our struggle. And we made many times demonstration in the town with different ways, like making posters, having batucada, going on the tram, made some concerts in the truck inside the city. And more, the town would, now it's a bit, it's getting harder for us now to make this demo because our movement grew, and from the beginning I think it was okay to go in the center. Now it's really, it's getting hard because for the towns they know we are like connected with kind of ZAD movement, and for them it's something really like threatened. And now each time we want to do something in the city, like they put a lot of police. And we also continue to occupy some place. There were still, this is in 2007, last year, still some place empty. So after the demo, we did the same as the beginning, like occupying a new place in Lentillères, making a field. And just this picture to show you, like we are just in front of what the town would like to change for, would like to make instead of us. Like just there is a street, and just behind it's a new quarter, eco quarter, and they want to do the same thing in our place. Okay, so now let the place for Tasha to speak more about organization.
Okay, so like in the course of the 8 years that the land has been occupied, it's changed from being a kind of abandoned piece of old agricultural land to a really vibrant piece of land with lots of different uses. It's currently home to just over 100 people, but it's used by many, many more people. There's lots of people from the neighborhood who come and make their gardens there, for example. And it's sort of divided, it's mixed, but it's sort of a mixture of the preservation of agricultural land, the promotion of agricultural land, mixed in with like living spaces and collective spaces. So like, where's the mouse? Yeah, amongst all of this, there's 3 major agricultural projects. There's the first one, which was the initial project in the Lentillères. Lentillères means lentil garden, by the way. That's the direct translation anyway. There's the initial project, the collective gardening project, which kind of occupies, which space would it be? Down here, I think. And then mixed in, generally in the middle, ooh, I'm a bit nervous, so I can't really do that direct mouse thing. Yeah, but then you get in the way of the camera. Mixed in the middle, there's lots of private individual gardens, like allotment sites. And then there's a big space in the center of the land, which is the collective farm, the Jardin de Maraîchers, the garden market gardeners. And that's the garden that grows for a free price market that happens for 6 months of every year. So those are the main agricultural projects. But then mixed in amongst that are all of the kind of, let's say, like urban projects or the collective living projects. You know, we kind of have our own version of urbanization in a way that's happening in the Lentillères. So the living projects, that's sort of divided between around approximately 12 collectives. Each collective has their own kind of collective space. Either that's a house that people live in and cook in and spend time in, or else some kind of collective space that people use, and then people are living in caravans and cabins around that space. And then amongst the living spaces, there are all of the collective spaces that have grown up over the years. So there's the Grange, which is a big kind of hangar that's used for different concerts. There's also a big free shop there. It's where the market often happens in the summertime. There's a bar there, so there's lots of different gigs and events that happen. There's the Snackfrisch, which was built and mainly used as a kind of collective meeting space, but also sometimes as a kind of pop-up cafe from time to time. There's a bike workshop. There's been a health and well-being space that's been open for about a year that's stocked with like all different kinds of herbal remedies and medicines, and there's massage things that happen there from time to time. There's a sewing workshop, and there's like a camping space for visitors, which in the summer is quite heavily occupied. So yeah, there's a mix between kind of urban, not exactly, you know, living and agricultural spaces. And quite a lot of these projects kind of emerged quite informally in a way, maybe quite organically. But at the same time, there was, of course, a lot of collective decision-making that went into all of these projects. I guess underpinning the kind of underpinning politics of the space is about non-hierarchy and autonomy. So an important organizing factor for the Lentillères is the monthly assembly. It's basically a space where anyone who's involved in the project can come and we make decisions together. That might be about the different events that might happen in the garden every month, or it might be about, what kind of things get discussed? New people coming, yeah, new collectives starting up, new uses for different parts of the land, things like that. In addition to the monthly assembly, there's often many like offshoot assemblies that happen to address different topics. So for example, for the last year, there's been a monthly assembly to talk about defense of the quarter. One offshoot of that project was a week of action that took place at the end of April, for example. Other special meetings to do with strategy or to organize or migrant solidarity things and stuff like that. But of course, in addition to the assemblies and these official meeting spaces, there's still the fact that in daily life, it's happening quite organically. People are making decisions in their collectives, and there's quite a lot of autonomy among collectives, or people are just doing their thing and just making their space. So it's quite organic in that sense too. I guess out of the collective decision-making, there's emerged like various different regular rhythms that have started to take place in the garden, different traditions, for example. So since the beginning, there's been a festival that's happened twice a year, and that happens to mark the spring and to mark the autumn. And it's normally like a weekend event in both cases, like parties and music, and there's been art exhibitions there, poetry. It's an open door, so anyone from the neighborhood or beyond is welcome to come. It was mentioned before that in the Spring Festival last year, it was used as an opportunity to occupy a final parcel of land, which is this little part here. We came and occupied this piece of land and put a massive tent up there and had a huge party, and now it's like a big field of pumpkins. Other kind of regular rhythms that happen. We have a big work week, but often it's longer than a work week, that takes place every summer. That's a chance for people living there and other people to come and like work together to develop something on the land. Last year, for example, it was to rebuild one of the broken buildings on the land. And we also have like a monthly work day, which is just again to come together and like do work on the collective spaces that might otherwise get a bit ignored. And then I guess a final thing about how we organize is the question of money. So there's like a kind of collective money pot. And the main way that money pot gets money in it is through kind of the collective activities that happen in the garden. So like the spring and the autumn festivals, for example, the different concerts that happen. There's concerts every month that take place in the garden. And then there's also projects that take place in the garden that will make donations to the collective pot. So, for example, the farm project will usually make a donation to the collective garden, to the Lentillères, and that money is used for all kinds of different actions or solidarity campaigns or, you know, the initial financing for parties or whatever and things like that. Yeah, I think that's kind of it for collective organisation. And then we thought we'd just leave it if you guys have any questions. Always. Oh, yeah, okay. Yeah.
And you mentioned there are like 12 different collectives, and you mentioned about this collective pot. I mean, gathering money is not an issue, but how do you distribute it? How do you make the decisions of the...
Do you want me to talk about that?
You can?
Can you say the question?
Oh, yeah. So the question was like, how do we get a collective bunch of money, but how do we distribute it? So I guess like most of the money that goes into the collective, okay? Most of the money that goes into the collective pot is used for kind of projects, let's say, that's related to the garden, like financing the other parties that might happen or the rebuilding projects or whatever. Like we were talking just yesterday actually about how like in France, it's still the case, like a lot of people who live in the Lentillères still can live from like social welfare. So actually that money for most people doesn't need to be like, isn't distributed amongst the people who live there. And so there is like, the fact that this welfare system exists is a big reason that this project can be so vibrant, but it also does create some kind of difference between those who can access French welfare and those that can't. So it's a dilemma.
You mentioned that there was an eco-quarter that was sort of threatening the Lentillères. I didn't quite get how was that happening, and what is the relationship now between the Lentillères and the municipal government?
That's, yeah, regarding the eco-quarter which threatens the Lentillères. So actually the fact that they use all this vocabulary around ecology makes everything very blur. Because so there's this project by the city council to build loads of housing, and it's called eco-quarter. And this is what threatens our own autonomous space. And this eco-quarter, we show a few, it's at the very end of the thing. Yeah, so it concerns all this place. And what you can see on the southeast is the step 1. And we are concerned by the step 2. And they began building the step 1 2 or 3 years ago. And so actually it's some like buildings made of concrete. You're going to see the picture. It's just normal buildings, but they call it eco-quarter because it's part of the said to be greenwashing, like their greenwashing vision. So yeah, if you put slide. Okay, oh yeah, sorry. And so that's what we are threatened by. But I guess what is quite special is that by living there for a long time and by being bigger and bigger, there is not a lot of, the threat is very subtle. It's mainly in the city council offices where they are preparing the step 2. But actually right now we just see these cranes and this on the opposite side of the quarter. But for now there is no concrete things inside our piece of land. So yeah. And facing it, what we kind of ask when we have a demo is that they should give up the step 2 of this big housing project. And the step 1 already began and actually concerns some kind of a polluted area. So we don't have any kind of discourse about it, but we have one about this land where so many people live and pass through and make gardens, and which is already actually eco, and which they want to put concrete on to make an eco quarter. But I do understand that it makes everything complex. Yeah, I answered your question, or yeah. Any other questions? Yeah, and by seeing the pictures, I thought, okay, well, there's something that it's really part of the daily life there that we kind of don't see so much on these pictures, that there is a very big diversity in this area, and I guess coming from some anarcho-punk squat, in which there is a very big identity in a way, like through the way you dressed and through the kind of people you are. In this place, for loads of reasons, actually, you have loads of different kind of people. There are, yeah, like from kids to over 60, 70 years old people. There are more than 20 different nationalities and loads of people coming from Central and North Africa, and I think when people do come in this area, that's part of what is quite special, that you see all these diverse people managing to work together, and it's not always easy, and there are loads of, as in every place, is hard thing to deal with, but we kind of try to deal together and kind of manage to do it in a way, and also having people from very different social backgrounds and also coming from different political backgrounds, which is also not always easy, but very interesting to challenge.
Yeah. I might have another one. Do you get any support from outside your neighborhood, from be it local citizens or even members of the city council that might be also favorable to the entire project? Do you get any external support helping you to maintain your presence, politically speaking?
Somebody asked. Can you try? The question was, do we get any support from outside the community to support the project? So, I mean, I guess from the municipality, not, because they don't want us to be there. But at the same time, like, I guess we're kind of part of the discourse of, like, the diversity of Dijon or something, maybe. I would say we get quite a lot of support from the neighbourhood that we're part of. Like, for example, the market is not just a market for those of us who live there. There's many people from the neighbourhood who use the market, and many people from Dijon who come to the events that we put on all the time. So,
yeah, in Dijon, I think the place began to be quite famous for the parties, actually, and the gigs. And it brings another part of people. And also, as Francis said, we are also very connected to other political networks, like national or international networks. And there are loads of people passing through who help so much with chantier or with just staying for a while, and kind of travelers traveler people, and yeah. And as we went a lot to the ZAD, but people from the ZAD would come too, and we really part of a wider network, and locally too. It's very, yeah.
What will the historians say about you in 50 years?
I think it depends on what kind of historians. Would it be awards in, or would it be?
That's the right answer.
Yeah.
Satisfying.
Okay. I would say that one thing very important to a few of us is the question of transmission, and we feel that for the internal dynamic, but also for being kind of known and supported, it's super important to right now make our own history. And that's why what you can see outside, we made, for instance, we made that kind of map explaining the history of the place for the last 8 years. We make some interviews with people, and it's really this vision of like, we should make history now. And if we do so, then it's the only way to, yeah, kind of stay. And I mean, that's one possible part of the answer, but yeah.
Another possible answer would be that the historians would say that we continue to occupy the land that was demonstrating another way of being that was non-hierarchical and egalitarian and free, that then joined up with all the other projects that were similar to that, that slowly took over capitalism, etc., etc.
Yeah, you showed in the beginning. You showed some photos of houses that were destroyed and all these things. Do you still have problems like this now, or did this kind of stop after you started growing bigger and the city kind of, as you said, it's more planning in the offices now, and it's kind of holding the police back?
I think since a few years it didn't really happen. It didn't really happen since few years. I think now most of the constructions and most of the houses are squatted, and they are not. They are still threatened by, but there is no trial and there is no eviction since maybe 2 years now. I think we are in a moment where, I don't know, the towns, they don't know what they will do with us. So they didn't, for the moment, they didn't make a trial, and it's a period like that, a bit quiet. Yeah.
2015 was a bit like a defeat for them because they wanted to evict this house. We had quite a lot of support, we barricaded a lot the house, and they didn't succeed in this eviction. And since then, they were like, okay, we don't really know what to do with this neighborhood, Scottish neighborhood, and maybe we don't want to see it now. We will do it later, maybe. And now the mayor is sick, and the next election will be in 2020. So it means we don't start to evict, that they have to make the judicial process that will last for at least a month, maybe if we are good at it, 1 year or something like that. So it means they should start almost now. So the eviction is not during the election time or the campaign. So our guess now, even if we are not sure of it, is that we can still be quite safe for the next year or 2 years. But after that, it will depend on the municipality if it changes or not, and what are the plans. And also the other thing we know is that they were quite like waiting decision about the ZAD. We knew that by somebody working at the municipality that he said to us last year that they were looking at the government decision about eviction, to evict or not the ZAD. because yeah, we have quite similar place, and they were thinking if the government is defeated at the ZAD, maybe it's not the same as we go and request this place. But yeah, my guess is that for 1 or 2 years maybe we will be okay, and we will try to win more time with the judicial process.
True.
Maybe we're done.
But yeah, and this is going to be a really mobilization time. You can see that. And I will answer that because also meanwhile we are trying to get this to be more and more stronger with people from Dijon, but also with people from France and Europe, and we like to invite people where we go come and visit us. The place is quite open for people from the city, but also from people from Europe, everywhere. We try to, when people are coming, we try to have a good condition for them to stay and share this experience. So if people from you like to come, it's not easy, just come and talk to us or write us an email and we try to find a way so we can be welcome.
And maybe we can just finish by saying there's a table with some literature outside, and also there's some literature from us, but also from the ZAD. There's a text about a call out for this autumn. Yeah? Not really? Anyway, there's news from the ZAD and from us on the table outside.
And come to us if ever you have any more questions. Oh.
Yes, can I also ask, you have been mentioning the connection between ZAD, and there was a very good picture of ZAD and Dijon and you all together. Have you made more concrete steps in organizational terms to be together, or you just do demos together for now? Or have you had really gatherings or things of the different struggles in France? Or are there thoughts on that direction?
We should have had a gathering like 1 month ago during the Resistance Week in Lentillères, but it was eviction of La ZAD. So all these projects, they didn't come because they were in La ZAD. But I think it happened many times that we connected together. And it's going to be a new occasion at the end of August in La ZAD because they're going to make an international gathering with many projects. We will be there, Bure will be there. Yeah. We don't have, for the moment, a formal organization together, but it's really, we have many occasions to see each other, and discussing together about how we struggle in each point and how we can do some stuff together.
Which kind of internal conflict do you usually face as a group, and how do you solve them?
Do you have any idea? Okay, I will say one. I guess one is connected to veganism and having some people who are less into this struggle. And for instance, it's Ramadan now, and it will be the Eid, which is one party at the end of Ramadan, in which they kill some sheep. And last year, for instance, there were some people who were into veganism who were really felt really aggressed by the fact that one sheep was killed in the Lentillères. And it's one thing, but I'm also thinking about there would be some others, but I also feel regarding other that we face very few conflicts. It's more individual conflicts, but very few kind of group conflicts. But one thing, like one debate we had was because last week of resistance, some people who were in the week of resistance attacked informally the step 1 of the eco-quartier. And some people said that actually there are some people, and especially migrant people, but not only, who are in some very precarious situation. And by attacking the other part, it also means threatening some people who are in some very precarious situation. And in a way, the thing was erased, but reason, I don't know. Like, we began talking about it, but it wasn't a big conflict. It was more, okay, we don't agree with this, and we want to tell it in the assembly, and people should be aware of it. But yeah, these are a few, but maybe there could be some others.
Yeah, I think there are many. For all the beginning of this project, I think many times we had discussions about when we grew. It was about habitation, like which is the way, how can the people decide to live in the space or not, and where is it possible to live. I think we had a long time discussion to make, I don't know, something common, to say, okay, maybe we try to have something like a way of formal decision, that how can people decide to come in Lentillères, where they can put their installation or not. And this was a long process. And when it was this process, and it is still, we had many times like tensions. Yeah, for sure.
But it's a good question.
It's like the complaint section.
Like municipality, the police who came to undraw the graffiti. It happened many times. We had some conflicts. Also, when there was this destroying, these evictions and destroying of the houses, we had to face. But most of the time, but usually we don't go outside. I mean, the police pass by the street outside of the quarter, and we don't attack the police every day. But we agree that we don't want them to go inside. So if it happens, we're gonna be together against this.
Maybe this guy had a question, but maybe we take just the last two. Yeah.
Are you involved with the Global Eco-Village Network? And if not, why not?
Do you know what that is?
So whether we are or not connected to Eco-Village, my answer would be that the few eco-village we know are more into some kind of alternative vision, and a bit less into this idea of kind of fighting capitalism in a way. And I guess it doesn't mean at all that we despise them or that we think, okay, they are enemies, but it creates a small gap in a way. But I guess through this network of Reclaim the Field, and through the fact that we are into gardening and trying to have some very direct way of kind of selling vegetables or all this, makes us quite close to people being in eco-village and gardening too. So regarding practical stuff, in a way, we are kind of connected and would meet in this Reclaim the Fields movement. But we also feel that, yeah, this thing with struggling and fighting makes a little difference. Yeah.
And the last question? You still wanted to?
I just wanted to ask a British question. How often they try to go inside since the first one? Because I think maybe first it was more often, now it's less often.
So how often do the police try to come inside? I would say since 2015, it's very, very rare that they would enter the quarter. And that's very special because actually Dijon has a lot of cameras and police, and but we feel kind of protected in the quarter. And for instance, one action we had 1 year ago during one of the festival was, you know, these very big billboards, which are like 2 meters by 3 meters for advertisement. There was one at the entrance of the quarter, and actually during a gig, we made a little call and said, okay, you can come if we want, we're gonna have some direct action. And so 100 people came, and we actually cut down with the billboard and during the night. And so it was put down together in the middle of the night, and this would never happen in Dijon, but it could have happened in the quarter, because then the police came and we could just protect ourselves in the quarter. So yes, they feel that entering the quarter is a bit threatening for them, so they don't do it a lot. And this is the billboard, because actually after we put it down, we made a new one, but our own, with in which it's written Quartier Libre des Lentillères, free quarter of Lentillères, which is the entrance of the place. And this would never happen in Dijon, and yeah, so they don't come in the quarter, but they could come kind of around in the streets around.
So yes, now everything is freeze. There's no second step, but the police is not trying to evaluate.
Yeah.
No.
Mm.
Thank you.
Yeah, maybe if you have more questions, just come to us.